Hello, I'm Talia and I'm happy to share with you the latest paper on regulation and governance by my colleagues and I. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrates the crucial effect of mass compliance with crisis mitigating policies. In particular, the need to achieve herd immunization stresses the importance of vaccination compliance. While the effects of incentivizing regulations are widely investigated in the corporate and taxation context during routine times, there is significant scholarly gap regarding compliance-enhancing regulation during crisis and especially with health policies. This differentiation between contexts is important, both theoretically and practically, since times of crisis can affect the way we value and appraise incentives and consequently impact our decision-making and compliance. Therefore, the effects of incentives may differ in times of crisis and impact crisis mitigation efforts. Our paper examines how positive and negative incentives regulations may facilitate mass mobilization and civic compliance with government policies during a crisis. Naturally, the COVID-19 pandemic provided us the contextual environment for our study. We investigated the effects of vaccination incentivizing policies of over 1,100 Israeli citizens prior to the national vaccination campaign. We applied a cross-sectional online survey in which we asked participants to state whether they intend to get the anti-COVID shot once it's available. The participants could reply yes, no, or don't know. According to the response, we categorized the participants to vaccine acceptors, opposers, and hesitators. This was the baseline measurement of vaccination intentions when no incentives were suggested. Next, we asked all the participants to state whether they will get the shot if the government applies positive incentives such as tax exemptions and grants, and negative incentives such as banning participation in public events and use of public transportation for unvaccinated people. All the incentive examples we used were realistic scenarios that were publicly discussed in the media prior to the data collection. We chose this non-experimental, order-related approach in order to simulate a feasible course of action of the government, which is favorable in studies that investigate real-life decision-making. We also measured several control variables that were previously identified in the literature as being associated with vaccination behavior. Our results indicate that both types of incentives had a positive effect on the overall compliance intentions rate. But a close examination indicated that different incentives had a different effect depending on initial compliance intentions. While for opposers and hesitators, both types of incentives had the same effect, for acceptors, those who were willing to get vaccinated without any incentives, negative incentives had a stronger negative effect compared to positive ones. That is, while both positive and negative incentives enhance compliance intentions of opposers and hesitators to the same extent, they reduce those of acceptors, creating a crowding out effect, particularly when negative incentives are applied. These results stress the unique effect the health crisis context has on our decision-making. While in routine times and in taxation context, negative incentives were often found to be more effective than positive ones due to the psychological principle of loss aversion, our findings demonstrate that in the context of a health crisis, negative incentives lose their advantage and may even undermine policymakers' efforts to achieve mass compliance. These results coincide with other studies performed during the COVID-19 pandemic that demonstrated the absence of loss aversion bias due to heightened emotional stress caused by the pandemic. These findings indicate that in similar stressful times, citizens or regulatees may be less susceptible to regulation approaches that entail negative incentives than compared to less stressful contexts. Our paper offers contributions to several strands of literature, especially to the behavioral public policy, public health, and policy design scholarships, as it provides insight as to how the preliminary intentions of policy targets may impact their behavioral response to policy interventions in a health crisis context. Furthermore, this paper may shed light on the importance of a gradual incentivizing regulation architecture during an ongoing crisis that could maximize the compliance of different groups in the society. By doing so, this paper also provides policymakers with knowledge and guidance to enhance vaccination compliance in the current and in similar pandemics in the future.